After 3 years of marriage, Zhaozhao finally gave birth to 3 treasures. But within 2 months of pregnancy, she discovered that her husband had another woman outside. Feeling disheartened, she decided to hide her pregnant belly and feign death. Chu Yan looked at his wife's burnt appearance in front of him, heartbroken and regretful. From then on, he went crazy. Crazy enough to search the world for someone who looks like his wife. Until one day, when Chu Yan discovered that his deceased wife had been resurrected and had been by his side all along, he was extremely excited and full of joy, wanting to take his wife home, but broke into the wedding scene between his wife and other men. He was so scared that he rushed forward and hugged his wife in his arms, his eyes turning red. Zhaozhao, we haven't divorced yet. You dare to try getting married, he said. Zhaozhao coldly pushed the person away and said, Mr. Chu, you have mistaken the person. Chapter 1. Women Outside Husband. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't kiss, you'll be discovered. Zhaozhao raised his hand to the man on his body, pleading in a low, kitten-like voice. But the more she resists, the more interested the man becomes. Covering her slender and petite body, imprisoned in the center of the bed, she bent down and pecked at her seductive lips. Zhaozhao didn't know what had happened to this man lately, coming back every night to harass her. Every morning when she had to leave, she had to struggle for an hour. But she woke up late today. If she continues to procrastinate, she will really be discovered. Avoiding the man's kiss again, Zhaozhao looked at his blurry outline and whispered. It's almost dawn, I have to go back to my room, otherwise I'll really be discovered. The man seemed to have not heard her, clamping down on her rebellious hands and once again blocking her small mouth. Zhaozhao couldn't break free and had to let him go. Perhaps it was because he was too skilled in this area, and despite feeling uneasy, she was still lured by him to unconsciously respond. Enjoying the joy of waking up in the morning with him. 1 hour later the man got out of bed and went to the bathroom. Zhaozhao hurriedly put on his clothes, opened the door, and slipped out. When she arrived at her room and saw her mother tidying up her bed, she walked over with a guilty heart and shouted. Mom, I'll do it myself. Ye's mother turned around and saw her daughter's face flushed with a hunchback, and there were still some beads of sweat on her forehead. She couldn't help but ask. Where did you go early in the morning? You made yourself so tired. Zhaozhao's eyes flickered as he avoided his mother's gaze and went to the wardrobe to choose clothes. I woke up early and went out for morning exercises. Mom, go ahead and help yourself. I'll tidy up and go out. Yimu didn't think much and said, Zhaozhao, you should know that this is not our home. Fortunately, the old lady likes you and keeps you living in the Chu mansion. As the butler of the Chu mansion, my mother is also dedicated to her duties. Perhaps the old lady is reluctant for us to leave. She has mentioned it to me several times and said she can help you finalize your marriage with young Master Nanting. What do you think? Zhaozhao was startled and turned his head to look at his mother. Help me get engaged to Nanting. Ye's mother nodded and said, yes, you grew up with me in the Chu family and grew up with young Master Nanting and Miss Nanxiang. You two are childhood sweethearts. If you marry him, I can rest assured. Has Grandma already decided on this matter? Can we first ask Nanting what he means? What if he doesn't like me? Zhaozhao was a bit anxious and didn't know what to do for a moment. She has maintained that kind of relationship with Chu Yan for a year now. And Chu Yan is the 6th uncle of Nanting. How could she get engaged to Nanting? It mainly depends on what you mean. Seeing her daughter's strong reaction, Ye's mother was somewhat disappointed. The old lady may have obtained the consent of Nanting young master before telling me about your marriage to him. What's wrong? Don't you want to marry Nanting young master? Zhaozhao dared not look directly at his mother's gaze and lowered his head, admitting. I have never had that kind of affection for Nanting. Mom, could you please respond to my grandmother's words and not help me get engaged to Nanting? I don't know if Chu Yan knew about this either. During this time, he always came back every day and called her into the room every day. Especially last night, he had rough and aggressive movements. Several times it almost made her cry. Until now, her limbs are still sore. Ye's mother looked at her daughter, hating that iron cannot turn into steel. Although young Master Nanting is a bit playful, he is the eldest young master of the Chu family. If you marry him, you will become the head of this family in the future. This is a blessing that you have cultivated for several generations. Why are you so ignorant? You should know how many women outside want to marry into this family, but they don't even have a chance. The old lady has chosen this child as her granddaughter, but she still doesn't know how to be grateful. Zhaozhao lowered his head and remained silent. A long, long time ago, like all young girls who were just starting to fall in love, she deeply loved the man standing in the spotlight, shining brightly in her heart. What she never dreamed of was that the man was also interested in her. So a year ago, the two of them were together. Although they have been maintaining an underground romantic relationship for the past year. But she doesn't care at all. As long as she can be with him, even if she doesn't make it public for a lifetime, she is willing. Mother-He doesn't want her daughter to give up such a good opportunity. Pulling her to sit by the bed, she earnestly said. Zhaozhao, you should know that we are only working at the Chu family. It is an honor for the old lady to take notice of you and make you the young lady here. If you refuse the old lady's wishes, what does that make her think? Besides, Nanting's child is not bad, handsome, and usually treats you well. Can you not disappoint everyone? Zhaozhao raised his head to meet his mother's gaze and insisted. But I don't like him, shouldn't I be forced to marry? If you insist on getting married. She just wants to marry the top superstar with billions of fans, Chu Yan, who has been popular throughout the country from childhood to adulthood. She also knows she doesn't deserve it. But she really loves him. Thinking of him in the morning, caressing the sweet words spoken in her ear, she couldn't help but be greedy and intoxicated. You child, what should I say about you? Yi Mu stood up angrily, feeling helpless. We cannot refuse the old lady's wishes, unless you never want to step into this house again in the future, and you can do it yourself. Thinking it was time to serve the old lady and wake up, Ye's mother shook her hand and left without further ado. Looking at his mother's back, Zhaozhao's face showed sadness. She doesn't believe that Nanting really wants to marry her. As long as Nanting speaks clearly to the old man, she won't have to be so difficult. After changing clothes, Zhaozhao went to the restaurant to help. Chu family. He is a prominent household in the entire western city. He is also the richest person in the city. The oldest member of the Chu family is Mrs. Chu, who is only in her 70s this year. She has a total of 6 children under her command. The eldest son, Chu Yan, is the chairman of the Chu group. He is married and has a pair of twins. His son is named Chu Nanting and his daughter is named Chu Nanxiang. Chu Su, the second son, is the president of the Chu group and also married. He has a son named Chu Nani, who is 15 years old. 3 daughters, 4 daughters, and 5 daughters have all been married. Only 1/6 son remains, 28 years old, unmarried. This 6th master is the pride of the entire Chu family. Having been exceptionally intelligent since childhood, he entered the entertainment industry at a young age. Not only is he skilled in singing and dancing, but he also has high intelligence and education. Especially in recent years, none of the movies and TV dramas he has starred in have been popular. Due to his strength, appearance, and intelligence, the entire entertainment industry is basically within his control. He is only 28 years old and has already surpassed the market value of his family business. Zhaozhao felt lucky. She didn't know who her father was from a young age and stayed with her mother at the Chu family. Most people in the Chu family treat her very well. Especially the man she loves in her heart is still with her. Although she couldn't see the light, she still felt as sweet as drinking honey in her heart. At this moment, while playing with the dishes in the restaurant, Chu Yan's portion of food was arranged with extra care and attention. "Is this my share?" Suddenly, the man's magnetic and pleasant voice came to his ears. Zhaozhao turned his head. Seeing that it was the man she had been longing for, she blushed and quickly pulled out a chair for him. "Uncle Lu, please sit down," she said. Chapter 2. Child Aborted and Divorce. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chu Yan was dressed in casual attire, standing tall and upright. His height of 189 accentuates his slender legs and outstanding temperament. The facial features are like carving, resolute and three-dimensional, with distinct diamond corners. The skin on the face is even more delicate and flawless. This kind of man is like a piece of art left by God on earth, impeccable, so beautiful that people cannot take their eyes off it. Although we have been together for a year now. But every time she gets so close to him in public, Zhaozhao still feels nervous and her heart beats faster. Looking at the chair pulled open by the girl, Chu Yan sat down politely. Zhaozhao quickly poured him milk, and the milky white liquid suddenly reminded her of some of the man's actions last night, causing her cheeks to instantly turn red. Even my hands were trembling with nervousness. Chu Yan saw her abnormality and let out a low snort. "What are you thinking? Didn't drink enough last night?" Zhaozhao's heart was in a panic, and he shamelessly and helplessly said, "Uncle Lu, please use it slowly." Placing the cup in front of him, she turned around to leave. Not far away, came the laughter of Chu Nanxiang. "Good morning, Zhaozhao." Zhaozhao turned her head and saw that it was Nanxiang, the twin sister of Nanting. She responded with a smile, "Good morning, Nanxiang." Then he slipped into the kitchen and continued to busy himself with other servants. Chu Nanxiang didn't know why Zhaozhao's face was so red. She sat down at the dining table and saw Uncle Lu, who always had a face full of refusal, politely shout out. "Good morning, Uncle Lu." Chu Yan let out a faint and didn't wait for everyone to arrive. He casually ate a little before leaving. Zhaozhao stood at the kitchen door, watching his distant figure, feeling as if he had lost something. Chu Nanxiang, the eldest lady sitting at the table, could not help roast. "My sixth uncle is really busy with tasks. He comes back at night and leaves early in the morning. I don't know why he earns so much money every day." Zhaozhao continued to bring the dishes over and play with them, lowering his head and saying. "He may love his job. He has been working in the entertainment industry for over 20 years, and he has acted in hundreds of plays without 1,000. I don't know why he's just not tired of it." Thinking that she was also studying acting, Chu Nanxiang suddenly felt extremely bored. Zhaozhao smiled and said. "I'll go upstairs and wake up Nanting first." Go ahead, go ahead." Chu Nanxiang didn't care and sat there obediently, waiting for the elders to come to the table. When Ye's mother helped the old lady into the restaurant, almost everyone else arrived. Seeing another sixth child missing, the old lady asked. "Where's Ian? Why didn't he come?" Zhaozhao stood up at the back of the dining table and replied. "If I were to go back to my grandmother, Uncle Lu has eaten it and has already left the house." Upon hearing this, the old lady waved her hand and said, "You sit down, he seems really busy. He's so busy that he doesn't even have time to eat with us at the same table. Don't worry about him." Everyone moved their chopsticks. Everyone then began to move their chopsticks one after another. After dinner, Zhaozhao, along with Chu Nanting and Chu Nanxiang's twin siblings, took the Chu family car to the Film Academy of Xi'an University. They are three of the same age, only 20 years old this year, and have just entered their sophomore year. Zhaozhao studied literature, Chu Nanxiang studied performance, and Chu Nanting studied directing. Although the three of them are not in the same department, they go to school at the same time every day and basically return at the same time. Thinking of what his mother had said in the morning, Zhaozhao turned his head to look at the boy sitting next to her, dressed in an English-style school uniform, appearing particularly sunny and handsome. She tried to ask. Nanting, do you know about Grandma's engagement to you? Ah. Before the parties could respond, Chu Nanxiang opened his eyes wide with curiosity. Grandma wants to get engaged to her brother. How come I don't know when it happened? Who are we getting engaged to? Zhaozhao was still looking at the boy beside him, silent. Chu Nanting was busy playing games, without looking up or paying any attention, and casually replied. I know, Grandma told me. Zhaozhao had an ominous premonition and continued to ask. Do you know who that person is? Chu Nanxiang sat beside and listened attentively. She also really wants to know what kind of daughter.In.Law Grandma wants to find for her brother. After finishing a game, Chu Nanting looked up at Zhaozhao and smiled, Isn't that you? Zhaozhao. I didn't expect this guy to know about this. So did he agree with his grandmother's decision? Feeling somewhat puzzled, Zhaozhao asked again. Did you agree to Grandma's arrangement like this? Chu Nanting stared at her, with a handsome face adorned with a faint smile and a nonchalant attitude. You are usually a careful and considerate person, virtuous and gentle. I think it would be good to marry you as your daughter.In.Law. So when my grandmother asked me about it, I didn't object. Why don't you agree before Zhaozhao could reply? Chu Nanxiang next to him smiled and said. This is okay. Zhaozhao, if you want to marry your brother, wouldn't the three of us be together forever? I didn't expect Grandma to be so righteous. This decision is simply amazing. Zhaozhao really wants to say that she has someone in her heart. But she dare not. Mother is right, it is her honor to grow up in the Chu family. Although she is a servant of the Chu family, she is different from all the servants. At the Chu family, she enjoys the same treatment as the southern Hunan court, not only attending the best schools, with endless luxury brands, but also having a separate large room. Nanxiang and Nanting treated her like sisters. If she refuses Nanting and confesses to everyone that the person she loves is Chu Yan, then what will they think of her? How can she live up to the kindness of the Chu family towards her upbringing and the kindness of her grandmother? What kind of expression are you? You don't want to marry me. Seeing the displeasure on Zhaozhao's face, Chu Nanting looked at her and asked with a smile. Zhaozhao's eyes flickered and he quickly lowered his head. Nanting, marriage is not a children's play, why don't we? Ha ha ha. Before she could finish speaking, Chu Nanting burst out laughing and naturally put his hand on her shoulder, comforting her. I know this is quite sudden for you. It's okay, you slowly adapt. When you figure out which day you want to marry me, it's not too late for us to get married again. He started another game and continued playing without any concern. It seems like I haven't even taken the engagement matter to heart. No matter what kind of thoughts and feelings the person who wants to get engaged to him has. Zhaozhao hesitated to speak. Unable to find a better solution, she could only ask the man. At night. Zhaozhao, who had just come out of the bathroom, saw his phone on the bed light up. She picked it up. When he saw the news sent by Chu Yan, he smiled knowingly and quickly changed into his favorite clothes to meet him. Chapter 3. Leaving Other Women Behind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The villa in Chu Mansion has a total of 6 floors. And the entire 6th floor is the private domain of Chu Yan alone. Others cannot get on without an elevator password. Zhaozhao arrived at Chu Yan's door, tidied up his clothes, and then pressed his fingerprint password to push the door in. The room is luxurious and low-key, with dim lighting. Zhaozhao walked up to the bed and saw the man already sitting at the head of the bed, as if reading a script. She cautiously approached him and took the initiative to climb onto the bed. Seeing that he had not reacted much, Zhaozhao dared not disturb him and sat beside him greedily admiring his prosperous appearance. Chu Yan, seen from her perspective, was dressed in dark pajamas, lazy and easy-going, and extremely noble. The dim yellow light hit his face from the side, making his already three-dimensional and beautiful face more handsome and extraordinary, with a picturesque appearance. Such a man, even if he sits there doing nothing, still exudes an irresistible scent of hormones all over his body. Zhaozhao swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but approach him. She raised her hand to take the script from his hand, put it down, and boldly rode on his lap, hugging his neck and actively kissing him. Chu Yan saw this girl so proactive for the first time. She was usually obedient and shy, always causing him to lose control time and time again. Tonight she took the initiative, and even more so, she wanted his life. He couldn't control the wild beast inside his body, so he took her under him and plundered and possessed her recklessly. Afterwards Zhaozhao hid under the blanket, pressed against Chu Yan's thick chest, and whispered. "I don't know what to do about something, I want to hear your opinion." Chu Yan hugged her smooth and round fragrant shoulder with a lazy voice, say. Zhaozhao moved his body and raised his hand to embrace the man's flawless waist, greedily leaning against him. "To be honest," he said. "My mother told me that my grandmother wants me to get engaged to Nanting. Nanting doesn't seem to have any objections, and I don't know what to do. How about being honest with my grandmother about our affairs? She may have some delusions. I was dreaming of becoming the wife of this man." However, before her beautiful dream could come true, Chu Yan suddenly avoided her and sat up at the head of the bed. A perfectly beautiful face, instantly cold as ice, stared at the girl next to her, and her voice sank by 3 points. "Zhaozhao, do you take yourself too seriously?" Zhaozhao was taken aback for a moment, then sat up with him, his small face stiff and pale. Chu Yan stared at her with cold eyes. "What kind of person am I and what kind of person are you? The old lady asked you to marry Chu Nanting, which is your blessing. And if you dare to let a third person know about our situation, I will definitely make it difficult for you to walk around." He stopped looking at her and coldly ordered her to leave. "Get back to your room." Zhaozhao, who had not yet regained his senses, was like a bolt from the blue, with a blank mind. Especially looking at the man who suddenly became cold and heartless in front of her, she couldn't believe what she heard. So in his heart, what is she? What is their relationship this year? Unwilling to accept reality, Zhaozhao still held a hint of fantasy and asked in a hoarse voice. "Are you just playing with me?" Chu Yan ignored her pitiful expression and said coldly. "I thought you were well behaved and sensible, with self-awareness, but I didn't expect you to have the delusion of wanting to be with me forever. Zhaozhao, do you think you deserve it?" Zhaozhao was once again stunned. The chest seemed to be pierced by a sharp weapon, and a heart-wrenching pain suddenly struck. She was breathing desperately, trying to control herself from crying, but couldn't help tears rolling down her cheeks. "She is not worthy. But why did we maintain a romantic relationship with her back then, for a year? In this year, she gave him all her most precious things. How could he say such excessive and hurtful words at this moment?" After regaining his senses, Zhaozhao quickly raised his hand and wiped away the tears on his cheek, then turned his back to him and put on his clothes in confusion. "I'm sorry. I overthought it, so I will definitely stay far away from you in the future." Wearing her clothes, she didn't have the courage to wait any longer. She stood up and rushed out the door. Returning to her own room, Zhaozhao curled up in bed, crying uncontrollably. The man she liked since childhood thought he also had a good impression of her, so he was with her. I didn't expect him to be just playing. I didn't expect her to be nothing in his heart. Zhaozhao felt as if his heart had cracked open, it hurt so much. The pain kept her awake all night. The next morning, my eyes were red and swollen. Even when eating at the table, I dare not lift my head. Unfortunately, the dining table this morning was still full of people. The old lady, the Chu Han couple, the Chu Su couple, and their 3 children. Even Chu Yan, who has always been absent, is here. Although Yi Zhaozhao and Yi Mu were servants of the Chu family, with the permission of the old lady, they could dine together at the table. At this moment, seeing that Yi Zhaozhao was not doing something right, the old lady asked. Zhaozhao, what's wrong with you? Why do you always keep your head down? Did what I told your mother before make you feel embarrassed? When Yi Zhaozhao lifted his head, his gaze unconsciously turned to Chu Yan across from him. She tightened her heart and hurriedly avoided looking at the old lady, shaking her head and saying. No. What's wrong with your eyes? Why are they so swollen? Although the old lady was in her 70s, she was still full of energy and a red face. Even though several people were separated, she could clearly see Yi Zhaozhao's swollen eyes. Yi Zhaozhao felt extremely guilty. Seeing everyone looking at her, she quickly lied. Last night while washing my hair, I accidentally let the shampoo run into my eyes. Grandma, I'm fine. Well, if you're feeling unwell, let the doctor at home take a look. Glancing at her grandson beside her, the old lady looked at Yi Zhaozhao again. Do you have any objections to what I told your mother? If there are no objections, I'll find someone to choose a good day and get engaged to you and Nanting. How about that? Upon hearing this, Yi Zhaozhao's gaze unconsciously turned to Chu Yan across from him. Seeing him eating elegantly and quietly, as if it were none of his business, her heart began to ache again. She could have refused in front of everyone, but she didn't refuse and looked at the old lady in anger, saying. Okay, it's all up to Grandma's arrangement. The old lady smiled contentedly. I'll say you won't disagree. Although Nanting is playful, he treats you well. Let's get engaged first and hold your wedding after you graduate from college. Yi Zhaozhao's expression was dazed, but he still cooperated with the response. Okay. Chapter 4. Just want to divorce, run with the ball. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In this way, Zhaozhao will never leave us again. Grandma, you're amazing. Chu Nanxiang couldn't help but clap his hands and cheer. As the precious gem of the Chu family, holding the moon from a niche star. Although it has cultivated her bold and unconstrained personality, the good upbringing of the Chu family has given her a generous and tolerant heart. From childhood to adulthood, Yi Zhaozhao has never been considered a servant. What delicious and fun things do you have? The first thing that comes to mind is Yi Zhaozhao. But Chu Nanting is a true playboy. All day long, besides playing games and being idle, I just go out all night with friends to continue playing games. Unlike ordinary boys, they tend to think about studying hard and having a romantic relationship at this age. He has little interest in girls. When his grandmother proposed to betroth Zhaozhao to him as his wife, he agreed without much consideration. Because in his opinion, Yi Zhaozhao is gentle and virtuous, cooks well, and doesn't care what he does. If he marries her, she will definitely be able to take care of the family. Anyway, he will get married sooner or later. Marrying a girl who satisfies everyone in the family is such a worry-free thing. As for the Chu Han couple, although they felt that the old lady's arrangement was somewhat inappropriate, Yi Zhaozhao was a good child whom they had watched grow up from a young age. In addition, their son is really playful, perhaps only Yi Zhaozhao can take care of him by marrying him. So they are not against the old lady's arrangement. Chu Yan in the crowd looked coldly at Yi Zhaozhao across from him. He didn't react and stood up without saying a word, coldly leaving everyone's sight. For him, who is so aloof and unsmiling, it is already commonplace for everyone. There's no way, who makes this sixth master a top-tier superstar. It's normal for him to be a bit arrogant. No one cares, everyone continues to eat. Only Yi Zhaozhao, staring foolishly at Chu Yan's back, knew that it was over with him and it would never be possible again. But when facing him, my heart couldn't help but ache. Throughout the day, Yi Zhaozhao was absent-minded in school classes. Especially for the next half-month, Chu Yan never returned home again. Zhaozhao constantly reminds himself not to think of him, their relationship has already ended. And my uncle and aunt are already preparing for her engagement banquet with Chu Nanting. In the future, she will be the fiancée of Nanting, and she must abide by her duties even more. At noon that day, Zhaozhao, as usual, had a meal at the school restaurant with the Chu siblings. As soon as the meal was served, she had not even had time to move her chopsticks. Just looking at the fish and meat on the plate made her feel like she was flipping a river and a sea in her chest, making her feel nauseous. She endured the discomfort and quickly stood up, saying, "Nanting Nanxiang, you guys eat first, I'll go to the restroom." Before the siblings could respond, Zhaozhao stood up and walked away. When she arrived at the restroom, she vomited a few times in discomfort but didn't vomit anything. But she had a faint ominous premonition. Because her appetite hasn't been very good lately, and she always has nausea. Especially Aunt hasn't come for 2 months. For safety reasons, Zhaozhao took 2 classes off and went directly to the hospital for a check.Up. When she finished the examination and walked out of the hospital building with the result list, she was completely out of her wits. This is an ectopic pregnancy. It's been 2 months now and you need to get rid of it as soon as possible. Otherwise, the larger the fetus, the worse it will be for your body in the future. In her ear, the doctor's words were still echoing. Zhaozhao stumbled and fell directly onto the stone ladder. She is pregnant. But it's an ectopic pregnancy. It is an ectopic pregnancy that must be lost. Zhaozhao raised his hand to caress his abdomen and couldn't help but blush. At the moment she learned about her pregnancy, she still held a hint of luck in her heart. Thinking that Chu Yan might redefine their relationship for this child. Maybe he will declare her existence for the sake of the child. Unfortunately, this child is about to pass away. Zhaozhao felt so uncomfortable and suppressed. She sat there, watching the falling night, feeling lost and unsure of what to do. At this moment, she missed him so much. Crazy thoughts. Zhaozhao couldn't resist his impulse and took out his phone to dial the familiar number. After waiting for a long time, the other party finally answered. He seems extremely impatient, his voice is always cold. "What are you doing?" Zhaozhao remained calm and his voice was low. "When are you going home?" On the phone, a man's cold voice came through. "Zhaozhao, are you becoming increasingly ignorant of the rules? Do you need me to teach you?" He once told her not to call him if there was nothing significant. Why is it so short-lived? Zhaozhao ignored his heartless feelings and held on to his pained heart, his voice trembling. I'm pregnant. Anyway, it needs to be destroyed. This matter must be concealed from everyone. She is with Nanting Nanxiang every day, and if she undergoes surgery, she will definitely be discovered. So we can only be honest with Chu Yan and let him arrange it. Otherwise, she won't be able to handle it well alone. What are you saying? Chu Yan thought he had heard wrong and asked again with uncertainty. Zhaozhao's tone was firm. "I said, I'm pregnant, and the child is over 2 months old." The other party heard clearly and instantly became furious. "Are you plotting against me? Every time I take safety measures, how can I get pregnant? Zhaozhao, are you living impatiently?" Zhaozhao ignored his anger and reminded him calmly, "Once in the middle of the night, you didn't wear it." Upon hearing this, Chu Yan seemed to remember once. But his heart was still not smooth, he said coldly. "How can you win at once? Do you want to learn from those women outside and play tricks on me to force me to marry you? If she dares to do that, she doesn't know how she died." Zhaozhao didn't expect that she would be so unbearable in his heart. She doesn't know how many women there are outside of him. I didn't want to learn anyone to play tricks on him. She wants to quickly deal with the child in her belly now. Holding back the discomfort in his heart, Zhaozhao bit his lips and had a bony airway. "Whatever you think, I'm already pregnant now." You can handle it yourself. She knew that even if it wasn't an ectopic pregnancy, with a child in her belly, she wouldn't have the ability to cause any trouble. Who is she? She's just a servant raised by the Chu family. Who qualifies Zhao to become the wife of billions of teenage idols? Chu Yan never thought that a little girl would dare to threaten him with pregnancy. Without any hint of pity, he said in a low voice. I will send someone to handle it. Later, you can tell your family that you want to go abroad as an exchange student for half a month. After listening to him for half a month, Zhaozhao immediately understood. Abortion also requires confinement, but doesn't it require 10 days and a half of rest? I don't know why, even though this child herself would have passed away. But even though Chu Yan didn't know that the child was an ectopic pregnancy, he still wanted her to terminate it. She felt like her heart was being forcefully torn open with a long gash, painful and bleeding profusely. Chapter 5. Let her sleep on the floor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not willing to say another word to him, Zhaozhao hung up the phone. A person sat on the stone staircase in front of the hospital building, unwilling to leave for a long time. When she returned to the Chu mansion, someone stopped her at the door, handed her a document, and then left by car. Zhaozhao didn't know why, so he opened that document. When she saw the information about the exchange student and the school's approval, she smiled helplessly. It is indeed Chu Yan. Efficiency in handling affairs is high. The next day, Zhaozhao handed the documents to the old lady and told her that she wanted to study abroad for half a month. The old lady looked at the information but didn't say anything. Also asked Chu Nanting to take her to the airport tomorrow morning. Chu Nanting did not refuse. When I delivered Zhaozhao to the airport the next day, I didn't forget to remind him. Pay attention to safety, remember to bring me some figurines when you come back. I sent pictures to your phone. Zhaozhao nodded, took his passport and boarding pass, and waved at Chu Nanting. Then I'll leave first. Chu Nanting waved his hand in response, still reminding him with a smile. Go ahead, come back in half a month. We should be able to get engaged soon, daughter.in.law. See you in half a month. Listening to his call for his wife, Zhaozhao felt guilty and guilty. Without any response, I quickly turned around and passed the security check. At the security checkpoint, Chu Yan's assistant was already waiting. When I received Zhaozhao, I took him directly to Chu Yan's private plane. Zhaozhao followed his assistant onto the plane, but unexpectedly Chu Yan was there. Watching him lying on the back of the chair wearing an eye mask, the half of his face was clearly defined, with thin lips lightly pursed. Under the slightly open collar of the shirt, the thick and fair chest is sexy and tempting, full of abstinence. Zhaozhao froze there, feeling both joy and sadness in his heart. I am happy because I have finally seen him again. I really want to always be by his side and never be separated from him. Sorrow is over between them. Perhaps his appearance was just to see the child disappear from her belly with his own eyes. Retrieving his gaze and trying to suppress the soreness in his chest, Zhaozhao walked directly past Chu Yan and sat in the back seat. Perhaps I felt her coming and then left. Chu Yan took off his eye mask and glanced at the entire cabin. When he saw the girl sitting in the back seat, his soared eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his eyes were so dark that they couldn't be seen from the bottom. Why, now you know you're avoiding me. Zhaozhao pretended not to hear and lowered her head to open the picture sent to her by Chu Nanting. See what you want to buy for him. Before she could finish reading, a distant voice of a man commanding indifference could be heard. Come here. Zhaozhao put away his phone and wanted to be proud again, but he couldn't get over it. Chu Yan has run out of patience. Looking at the assistant sitting in front, throw her down for me. The male assistant looked at Zhaozhao in embarrassment and gestured for her to go up. He has some impressions of this girl. It seems like a servant in the Chu mansion. I'm a bit shocked. His top-tier actor, how could he have been hooked up by his family's servants? Also got pregnant. If this matter gets out, then it's okay. After all, Zhaozhao compromised and stood up slowly to Chu Yan's side, sitting down with a reluctant expression. Chu Yan glanced at her and saw that she was still unhappy. He couldn't help but reach out and pinch her fair and round little face. Are you too scared? You don't even listen to me. Zhaozhao avoided his touch and watched the plane slowly glide before taking off. She couldn't help but have a negative airway. Just arrange for me to go to a hospital, why bother taking me abroad to handle it? I clearly wanted to be with him, but I was angry and said something out of place. Zhaozhao felt very despicable. Why love him so much? Love so much that you don't even want your own dignity. Who knows if you would use this child to find a marketing account to write articles. Chu Yan took her small hand and rubbed it in the palm of his hand. It was very cold. He frowned and raised his hand to embrace her entire slender body in his arms. Be obedient and don't learn from those women outside who play tricks on me. The benefits naturally come from you. Zhaozhao felt that he was too incompetent. Just being embraced by him like this, I completely forgot all the words he had previously humiliated me with. She snuggled up obediently in his arms, enduring some grievances in her heart, and asked in a low voice. Have you ever liked me a little bit? Zhaozhao knew that this was not something to ask. Even if asked, it would be a disgrace to oneself. Sure enough, Chu Yan's face sank instantly. Zhaozhao, aren't you getting enough? Do you insist that I get angry and throw you away? Zhaozhao immediately shut up and dared not say more. Even though she knew he had no feelings for her, she still foolishly held on to fantasies. Thinking that we will be getting engaged to Nanting when we return in half a month, let's wait for this child to leave and draw a clear line with him. She indulged herself for another half-month. After half a month, never have any further involvement with him in the future. I'm a bit sleepy, I'll lean on you to sleep for a while. Feeling tired, Zhaozhao changed her position and leaned against the man's embrace, forcing herself to fall asleep. Chu Yan did not refuse. Also asked the assistant to come over and cover her with a blanket. He held her for a 2-hour flight without moving. When Zhaozhao woke up, he was already lying on the big bed. She sat up and searched for a week, but didn't see anyone. But the huge French window in front, looking at the blue sky at a glance, is almost integrated with the endless sea. Is this the seaside? Zhaozhao gets out of bed and walks to the French window to see the endless sea ahead. She was very curious, why didn't Chu Yan take her to the hospital and bring her here? Zhaozhao turned around and left the room to search for the man. Coming out of the room is the living room, which is spacious, bright, and tidy, spotless. But still no one was seen, and Zhaozhao searched everywhere again. Finally, at the entrance of the gym, I saw a man standing on the treadmill running. He is naked in his upper body, with a tall and imposing figure, wide shoulders and narrow waist, and long legs. Perhaps he had been running for a while, sweat seeping out from each of his slightly dilated capillaries and slowly sliding down the smooth surface of his skin. Even my short hair was soaked through. Zhaozhao looked at his seductive, hormone-scented figure and blushed uncontrollably, with a dry mouth and tongue. She knew that she was shallow again. I'd just like to see this man without clothes on. While greedily admiring, the man on the treadmill noticed her presence and spoke out. Bring me a towel. Zhaozhao regained his senses, went not far away to get a towel, walked up to the treadmill and handed it to him. At this moment, she saw up close the 8 obvious abdominal muscles and 2 thick and broad chest muscles in Chu Yan's abdomen. The whole figure is simply flawless and makes people drool. Zhaozhao didn't understand what was going on with him. Although she often had skin-to-skin ties with him, she touched every part of his body with her hands. Why do you still feel feverish and agitated when you look at it openly at this moment? Chu Yan took the towel and wiped off the sweat from his face, watching the girl's gaze fixed on his abdomen. He raised his hand and nodded at her head. What are you looking at? You're pregnant now, and I won't satisfy your little greed. He turned serious and walked towards the next bathroom. Zhaozhao felt a bit ashamed and hastily argued with a guilty heart. Who wants you to be satisfied? The man in front suddenly stopped and turned around. He snorted and walked up to hold her. Since that's the case, then come satisfy me. Chapter 6. Collecting evidence of his misconduct. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before Zhaozhao could react, she was taken into the bathroom. Thinking of the previous incident, Zhaozhao still felt unhappy in his heart. She shook off Chu Yan's hand and became angry. Uncle Lu, please don't do this. I'm getting engaged to Nanting soon. She should recognize reality. We should also restrain ourselves from being tempted by him again. After dealing with the child in the belly, we will completely sever ties with him and strive to never have any illusions about him again in the future. The sound of Uncle Lu inexplicably displeased Chu Yan's heart. Combined with the girl's temper, it directly made him lose face. He raised his hand and pinched Zhaozhao's slender neck, leaning against her against the cold wall, his eyes covered in frost. Not to mention that you haven't been engaged to Nanting yet, even if you're engaged, as long as you haven't married him, you'll still be my woman. Zhaozhao needs to be obedient and behave well. When I feel comfortable, I will naturally rely on you for anything. Without hesitation, Chu Yan lowered his head and held onto her lips. Zhaozhao froze all over and was about to raise his hand to resist when his two little hands were easily clamped by the man. She couldn't move, and in the end, under his skillful and extremely tempting attack, her body unconsciously followed her feelings and chose to obey. After finishing the task, Zhaozhao finally came to his senses. She sat paralyzed on the ground, her small face flushed with swelling. She doesn't know what she's doing. Although he knew Chu Yan didn't have her in his heart, he was with her just for this desire. Unfortunately, she still couldn't bear to break up with him. Chu Yan took a shower, put on his bathrobe, and turned around. Watching the girl still sitting on the ground with a broken and ravaged appearance. He furrowed his sword eyebrows and crouched down to hug her. I didn't touch you again, can't I get up? Zhaozhao refused to let him hold him and got up to quickly rinse his mouth and wash his hands. Chu Yan looked at her in that way and became unhappy again. Disgusting. No, Zhaozhao shook his head hastily, what are you doing so hard to clean? Zhaozhao casually made a move and turned to face him, changing the topic. I'm hungry, let's go eat something first. Chu Yan thought that she had a baby in her belly and couldn't be hungry, so he didn't continue to ask. Then he took her little hand and took her to the dressing room to change clothes before going to the restaurant. They are located on the second floor, and the first floor is the reception and dining area. Zhaozhao followed Chu Yan and looked around as he walked downstairs. Walking to the first floor, she saw two chefs busy not far away and asked the man beside her. Where is this? Shouldn't you take me to the hospital? Why did you take me to live by the seaside? Chu Yan led her straight to the restaurant and patiently explained. This is my private island, in case it's caught by the media, I'll arrange for you to undergo surgery here. The whole island is actually not big. Apart from a small airport, they are currently in this modern and luxurious villa. Surrounded by the sea on all sides, people from outside cannot enter, and people on the island cannot leave without using transportation. What he wants is a highly private one. Upon hearing the three words, surgery, spoken by Chu Yan, Zhaozhao's eyes were filled with disappointment. He is indeed determined to have the child killed. Even without knowing that the child is an ectopic pregnancy. Zhaozhao suddenly felt a tightness in his chest and his heart began to ache again. She tried to conceal this discomfort, not wanting the man across from her to see it. Quickly, the chef brought exquisite dishes. Chu Yan picked up some of Zhaozhao's favorite foods and spoke out. You should rest here for 2 days first, and once you think it through, we can proceed with the surgery. Zhaozhao picked up chopsticks and dissected what he said while eating. She still looked up and asked, somewhat puzzled. Think clearly about what? Chu Yan is also eating. Although his face was dull and indifferent, his dining behavior was elegant and composed. In addition, his face is incredibly handsome, making him still mesmerizing. Zhaozhao looked at him, still reluctant to move his eyes. Chu Yan also looked at her, his voice very faint. I give you 2 choices. Firstly, you can stay here and give birth to your child. You are not allowed to leave for 1 step within 3 years. Of course, even if you have a child, I won't marry you. Secondly, terminate the child and return half a month later to get engaged to Chu Nanting. He picked up some more dishes for her and didn't look at her anymore. Think carefully about how you want to choose. Zhaozhao was slightly stunned. I was very surprised in my heart. This person actually didn't force her to have the child aborted. He actually gave her a chance to make a choice. But what's the use of such an opportunity when you think you're pregnant with an ectopic pregnancy? Zhaozhao lowered his head and continued eating. Chu Yan didn't hear back and looked up at her again. Please reply to me as soon as possible so that I can arrange for someone to handle it. Zhaozhao let out a and casually ate a little before lifting his head and asking. I have finished eating, can I go for a walk by the beach? I see that the beach seems pink and very beautiful. Chu Yan agreed. Remind gently, there is a dressing room next to the room where you got up. Inside is a dress and shoes prepared for you. Go take a look for yourself. Zhaozhao nodded and got up to go to the room. She found the cloakroom that Chu Yan mentioned. There are various beautiful dresses hanging inside. There are still many shoes. Zhaozhao casually took a pure white camisole dress and put it on, then stepped on beach shoes and went to the beach alone. Her skin has been white since she was young, and as soon as she stepped on the beach and bathed in the sunset glow, her whole body looked as beautiful as glowing. Although only 165 in height, he has a slender and exquisite figure. In addition, her delicate facial features and picturesque eyebrows and eyes make her a beautiful beauty. Chu Yan did not follow. But instead, he sat on the balcony with the script in hand, intentionally or unintentionally looking at the beach for a few moments. The girl he saw in the distance was small, with long black hair scattered over her shoulders. As if I had never seen the sea before, like a newly released canary, I could play happily on the beach alone. On a whim, Chu Yan took the phone from the coffee table, clicked on the camera, zoomed in, and then captured the girl by the seaside under the sunset. Just finished filming, the assistant came over to report. Sixth Master, Miss Lin is here. Chapter 7. Punishing her for other women. You are listening at novel.Audio. Chu Yan put away his phone and looked coldly at his assistant. How did she know I was here? The assistant lowered his head in fear and said, I don't know where Miss Lin got the news from. Chu Yan's face was as heavy as ice, and he directly smashed the script in his hand. If you can't even do this thing well next time, just roll up my bedding. The assistant nodded quickly and said, yes, what should we do with Miss Lin now? Chu Yan's gaze turned to the girl by the seaside and he casually replied. Let her come over. The assistant understood and nodded as he stepped down. Zhaozhao stayed alone by the seaside until the sunset. The temperature difference at night was large, and she felt cold before returning. As soon as I walked into the villa gate, I heard a woman's laughter coming from the direction of the living room. Zhaozhao poked his head and looked inside. I saw Chu Yan on the sofa in the living room, dressed in a gray shirt, lazily leaning against him, with his legs crossed. He was still holding half a glass of red wine in his hand, with a smile on his face, bewitching and bewitching. And next to him was an extremely mature and beautiful woman. When Zhaozhao saw the woman's appearance clearly, his heart inexplicably tightened. She recognizes her. She is a top-tier female celebrity in the same class as Chu Yan, named Lin Shuang. Zhaozhao didn't understand that since this was Chu Yan's private island. He brought her over to have an abortion surgery and not be known by the media, so why did he bring other women over? Watching the two of them talking and laughing, Lin Shuang occasionally took action against Chu Yan, but he didn't refuse. Zhaozhao felt as uncomfortable in his heart as eating a fly. She held back the discomfort and turned around wanting to leave. But in the living room, the man's cold and magnetic voice came over. "What are you doing there? Didn't you see any customers?" Zhaozhao paused in his footsteps and turned around. Seeing Chu Yan looking at him, it must have been her who called out. She had no ability to resist and could only walk over with a stiff face. The closer he got to them, the more Zhaozhao realized that the two people in front of him were simply a perfect match, a perfect match. A top-tier actor, a top-tier actress. If these two people come together, it will definitely become a good story. And what is she? Let me introduce you to the child at home, Zhaozhao. Before Zhaozhao could speak out, Chu Yan looked at Lin Shuang beside him, talking nonsense in a serious manner. Lin Shuang was stunned and looked at Zhaozhao. It's one of the twins in Chairman Chu's family, isn't it? Chu Yan's gaze fell on Zhaozhao and he did not deny it. His non-denial, in Lin Shuang's view, is a tacit agreement. With a smile, Lin Shuang looked at Zhaozhao and said, "Hello Zhaozhao." Zhaozhao never expected that Chu Yan would introduce her like this in front of outsiders. I didn't know how to respond for a moment, so I had to nod slightly to others. Lin Shuang averted her gaze and stared at Chu Yan, then asked. "What is your niece doing here?" Chu Yan's gaze was still fixed on Zhaozhao, pretending to be very fierce and reprimanding. "At a young age, I don't want to study well and come here for vacation. What are you doing in a daze? People won't even shout anymore. How do I educate you on a regular basis?" Zhaozhao regained his senses and immediately brought in the identity mentioned by the other party. He nodded at Lin Shuang and shouted. "Hello Auntie." Lin Shuang's face stiffened slightly and she smiled, "I'm only 30 years old, you should be almost an adult, right? You shouldn't call me Auntie." Chu Yan leaned aside and casually replied. "In terms of seniority, it should be called that." Lin Shuang pinched him and laughed. "You're taking advantage of me, it's your niece and not my niece. Unless we're both in the same household registration book, I can accept her calling me Auntie. Speaking, she looked at Zhaozhao and corrected. "Zhaozhao, you can call me Sister Shuang instead of Auntie." Zhaozhao nodded. Watching Lin Shuang's intimate behavior towards Chu Yan seemed to still enjoy it and didn't know how to resist. She felt like she had poured a bottle of vinegar into her heart, and the sourness spread throughout her chest, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. Unwilling to stay any longer, she lowered her head and said. "Uncle Lu, I'm tired of playing. Let's go back to my room and rest first." "Go ahead." Chu Yan replied casually. It seemed like they didn't care about Zhaozhao's existence at all, and continued to hold their wine glass and collide with Lin Shuang's wine glass, chatting and laughing happily. When Zhaozhao walked out of their sight, he could clearly hear Lin Shuang asking Chu Yan. "I'm not good at kissing, why don't Emperor Chu teach me?" Zhaozhao dared not turn back, let alone continue listening. She walked extremely fast, and when she returned to the room and slammed the door, her eyes seemed to be filled with sand. She knew it was her fault to fall in love with a man like Chu Yan who was towering and shining. But she really can't control her heart. "I can't control not caring about him having intimate contact with other women. At this moment, even if I hate Chu Yan's behavior to death. But in my heart, I was hoping that he could come to my room and explain to her. But after waiting all night, he didn't even show up. The next morning, Zhaozhao walked out of the room haggardly, wanting to talk to Chu Yan about getting rid of the child. But as I passed by a room, I met Lin Shuang, who had opened the door and walked out. Lin Shuang also saw her and greeted with a smile, "Good morning, Zhaozhao." Zhaozhao looked at her flushed and proud expression, and asked anxiously, "Where's my sixth uncle?" Lin Shuang is 172 centimeters taller than Zhaozhao. She laughed and raised her hand to pat Zhaozhao's shoulder, gesturing inside the room. "Last night, I talked to your uncle about the script very late. He was still asleep, so I went to do yoga first." After speaking, he turned around and left. Zhaozhao didn't believe that Chu Yan slept with Lin Shuang last night and suddenly pushed the door into the room. When she saw Chu Yanjun lying in the room where Lin Shuang had gone out, and she was still naked, her eyes turned red in an instant. The heart is more like being torn apart by something. Looking at him, Zhaozhao suddenly felt that he was so dirty. It makes her feel nauseous. Even if you're in the entertainment industry, you don't have to sleep with anyone you see. Moreover, with his background as Chu Yan, there is no need to use his own body to compete for higher positions. So is scum his nature. Zhaozhao was heartbroken, but still had to endure the pain in his heart and walked to the bedside, shouting loudly, "Chu Yan!" The man who had just fallen asleep frowned slightly and opened his eyes in displeasure. Seeing the girl standing in front of the bed, he couldn't help but lift his hand and pull her over, firmly holding her in his arms. "What's wrong? You let go of me." Zhaozhao struggled with great disdain. Chu Yan remained calm and majestic. "I owe you something to clean up again, right? Give it a try again." Zhaozhao didn't dare to move anymore, so he held her in bed and said coldly, "I've figured out how to get rid of the child. When will you call someone to perform the surgery on me?" Chapter 8. Encountering her with others. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing this, Chu Yan came to his senses. He let go of Zhaozhao and sat up to look at her. "Have you figured it out?" "Well, I've figured it out," Zhaozhao said, unwilling to look at him again. Chu Yan snorted coldly and lifted his hand to tease her soft hair. "You have a lot of self-awareness, but since that's the case, let's do it the day after tomorrow. It's inconvenient to have someone here these days." Zhaozhao knew he was talking about Lin Shuang. Thinking that he had really slept with Lin Shuang last night, she felt both angry and annoyed. She opened his hand, which was teasing her hair, and got up to leave. Chu Yan's face instantly darkened and he looked at her coldly. "Zhaozhao, what kind of nerve are you having?" Zhaozhao ignored and crossed the big bed. Chu Yan shouted again, "Stop me." Zhaozhao really wanted to smash the door and leave, ignoring him. But she can't do it. Who raised her in the Chu family? Who made her humble? She will have to obey the orders of the Chu family for her entire life. She stopped, but was angry and unwilling to take another look at him. Chu Yan remained calm and ordered, "Come here." Zhaozhao, holding back the bitterness in his chest, turned to look at him with a heart full of grievances. "What are you doing? I'll let you come over." Chu Yan has run out of patience. Zhaozhao, who was obedient to his background, couldn't resist the strong aura emanating from his bones. In the end, he obediently passed by. As soon as he walked to the bedside, Chu Yan pulled her over and pressed her under him, roughly tearing open her dress. Zhaozhao knew what he was going to do and instinctively raised his hand to refuse. "No, Chu Yan, don't treat me like this." Chu Yan held on to her hands, her eyes piercing. "Is it so short-lived? You dare to give me a face? Who gave you the courage?" I really didn't teach her a lesson, she really forgot who she was. Zhaozhao was frightened by his furious appearance. I was really afraid that he would disregard her pregnancy and immediately cry for mercy. I was wrong. It won't be like this next time. Uncle Lu, please don't do this. I'm still pregnant. Blame herself. Feeling unhappy in the heart leads to a temper. I forget my identity as soon as I get angry. She is just a servant raised by the Chu family, so she has no right to get angry with him. Don't you want this child? It's just right to lose it. Chu Yan disregarded her wishes and bent down to bite her lips recklessly. Zhaozhao wrinkled his entire small face in pain. Thinking of the danger of having intercourse with an ectopic pregnancy, she tried her best to avoid his kiss and continued to plead. Ah Yan, don't do this. Lin Xuan is still there and the door is not locked. What if she suddenly comes over? You shouldn't ruin your future because of me, right? She really knew she was wrong. In the year he was with Chu Yan, he had never been so angry. Not even ignoring her feelings. During this period, he seemed like a different person, so indifferent that she didn't even recognize him. Chu Yan finally stopped his barbaric behavior. Looking at the petite and pitiful person beneath him, he restrained his anger and pinched her round little face, humming. Remember, no one has the ability to destroy me. Thinking that she is pregnant, she really can't touch her. Chu Yan flipped over and sat aside. I'll let you go this time, get out. Zhaozhao hurriedly got up and got out of bed. After tidying up, he didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly walked out of the room. She is really beyond her control. Why get angry with him? Isn't this lifting a stone to hit your own foot? Walking downstairs, Zhaozhao saw the chef fiddling with the food and went straight to the restaurant to sit down. Halfway through breakfast, Lin Xuan walked over with a smile after practicing yoga. She wears cool clothes, has fair and beautiful skin, thin waist and long legs. Zhaozhao looked envious. She truly deserves to be a top-tier female celebrity. Who doesn't like such a beautiful and skilled idol? Zhaozhao, won't you call your uncle to come and eat together? Lin Xuan sat down opposite Zhaozhao with a smile. Zhaozhao's eyes flickered as he lowered his head and ate slowly. He doesn't like to be disturbed when he sleeps, so he will naturally get up and eat when he has enough sleep. That's right, last night I talked to him about the script so late. This morning, I went to see him specifically and disturbed his dream, which almost made him go crazy. Lin Xuan picked up a knife and fork and began to eat. Zhaozhao was somewhat surprised to hear what she said. So they didn't even sleep together last night. Is she overthinking it? Zhaozhao secretly cursed himself for being foolish. Next time, you can't just daydream like this. Otherwise, it would only be herself who suffers. Lin Xuan looked at Zhaozhao and smiled with a pleasing expression, asking. Zhaozhao, I heard that your family doesn't have any separate families, they all live together. Zhaozhao didn't understand why the other party was asking this. But she nodded and replied, Have you ever seen your uncle bring other women back home? It's like taking other women to your house and meeting your grandmother. Lin Xuan asked again. I have known Chu Yan for so many years, and even as good friends, he has never taken her to the Chu mansion. So she was curious whether Chu Yan treated everyone like this. There is still an exception, but she may not be the type he wants. Zhaozhao seemed to understand the other party's meaning. But he still replied truthfully, no, he has never taken any other woman home. Oh, that's it. Lin Xuan received a satisfactory answer and looked at Zhaozhao. Do you know what your grandmother usually likes? Zhaozhao knew her intention and refused to answer directly, without hesitation asking. You don't like my sixth uncle, do you want to please my family? You're still young and don't understand, I just casually ask, Lin Xuan said with an awkward expression on her face. Zhaozhao's expression was serious, and he kindly advised. Sister Lin, you look so beautiful, have good acting skills, can earn a lot of money, and there are so many fans who like you. Why bother to like someone who may not like you? Isn't it good for you to pursue your career and be beautiful alone? If she were like Lin Xuan, perhaps she wouldn't have fallen in love with Chu Yan. Zhaozhao believed that the reason why she liked Chu Yan was definitely because she grew up in the Chu family and received too many favors from Chu Yan, which made her fall in love with him uncontrollably. She is hopelessly in love and unable to extricate herself. And he, on the other hand, was just playing. It's so ridiculous to think about it. Lin Shuang laughed again and candidly said. This person's desires are endless. I am indeed successful in my career now, lacking nothing, but if I could be with the person I like, wouldn't that be the icing on the cake? Zhaozhao. So, is this another foolish woman like her? Knowing that one is not qualified to stop others, nor is one qualified to say anything more. She put down her knife and fork, got up, and left. Lin Shuang looked at her and said, Zhaozhao, where are you going? Go to the beach to pick up seashells. Ignoring Lin Shuang, Zhaozhao disappeared into the restaurant. Chu Yan squinted for 2 hours before getting up. When he saw Zhaozhao by the seaside, eating something casually and preparing to follow him, Lin Shuang walked towards him again with the script in hand. Finally, he successfully intercepted his way. Zhaozhao has had enough fun at the beach. The sun is too hot, and she quickly goes back to her house. As soon as I entered the villa, I looked up and saw 2 people sitting on the sofa, tightly pressed together. And Lin Shuang's bright red lips directly covered Chu Yan's thin lips. Chapter 9. Almost hits her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhaozhao looked at the scene before him and said he didn't care if it was fake. She not only cares. Still crazily concerned in my heart. At this moment, the heart felt like it was being fiercely penetrated by a sharp tool, and the pain was like a knife cutting. She pretended not to see and hurriedly ran upstairs. Chu Yan saw her presence, his face darkened, and he uncomfortable pushed away the woman on his body. All right, you're just a grandiose actress. Do you need to think about your acting skills repeatedly? He ordered, I'll have someone take you back. Lin Shuang avoided and chuckled lightly, isn't this playing the role of a couple with the actor? I'm afraid I won't be able to catch the actor's play. She sat upright and was unwilling to leave early. Why don't you go back so early? It's just right, I also want to rest here for 2 days. Chu Yan ignored her and his gaze unconsciously turned towards the direction upstairs. During lunch, Zhaozhao did not go downstairs to have a meal. Chu Yan personally came to the room to call her. Zhaozhao sat curled up on the ground by the bed, still awake, staring in a daze in one direction. Her small face was gloomy and sorrowful, her eyes were scattered, and she didn't know what she was thinking. Chu Yan walked up to her and reminded her in a low voice, go downstairs to eat. Zhaozhao seemed to have not heard, continuing to squat in a curled-up position without moving. Chu Yan crouched down and raised his hand to grab her ear. Death. I'll let you go downstairs to eat. Zhaozhao didn't want to see him, but he didn't dare to get angry with him. He had to endure the pain in his heart and said. I'm not hungry, you can eat it yourselves. How could Chu Yan not feel that she was being mischievous again? Feeling impatient, he stood up and looked down at her from above. Zhaozhao, what are you causing trouble again? He really can't understand this girl. Why is she so hot-tempered these past few days? She's always messing around with him. Did he get too used to her on a regular basis? As soon as Zhaozhao thought of the scene he had seen a moment ago, his heart couldn't help but ache. She endured the injustice and still dared not lose her temper. I don't have the right to argue with Uncle Lu. I just feel nauseous and don't want to eat. She is always aware of her identity. I have no right to interfere with him or any woman. Not even qualified to say a word about him. If you want to blame yourself, you can only blame yourself for being unproductive. You must care that he also has skin ties with other women, and then self-harm and internal friction. Just be clear about your identity. Chu Yan was too lazy to bother with her anymore, so he shook his hand and left. Zhaozhao lifted his head and looked at his disappearing figure, with crimson eyes. Knowing that there is a significant difference in identity between oneself and him. She no longer had any illusions and got up to climb onto the bed, forcing herself to sleep. If I fell asleep, maybe I wouldn't feel so uncomfortable anymore. Throughout the day, Zhaozhao did not leave the room for half a step. I don't want to go out for dinner either. Actually, I just don't want to see the man I love deeply with other women. Out of sight, out of mind. In the restaurant downstairs. The chef reported, "Sixth master, Miss Zhaozhao said she's not hungry and doesn't want to eat yet." Chu Yan sat there, his face darkened to the extreme. He continued to eat his own food calmly and elegantly. Lin Shuang, who was sitting opposite, spoke out. "I noticed this morning that your little niece's face is a bit bad. She shouldn't have encountered anything, should she?" Chu Yan replied coldly, "What can happen to her? Of course you men don't understand. A little girl like them, who is so confined in her room and doesn't eat, is likely to be heartbroken." Lin Shuang reminded, "Look, if she doesn't go home and comes to hide with you, it must be because she doesn't want to be in touch with people. It's not that she's heartbroken or uncomfortable." Chu Yan's sword eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his face became even more solemn. He continued to eat elegantly and reminded Lin Shuang again, "I'll take her back later. You can go back after dinner." Lin Shuang smiled and said, "Let's go together. We're not going our way again." Chu Yan looked at her with a cold attitude and said, "As you said, my child doesn't want to interact with people. Isn't following her making her more uncomfortable?" Lin Shuang hesitated to speak and dared not deviate too much. After all, she knows this man. If you are friends, their relationship may last for a long time. If she had figured out her thoughts, they might not even have had to be friends. So let's just endure for now. Okay, then I'll go back first. After dinner, Lin Shuang was sent on a cruise ship by Chu Yan's people. Chu Yan had the chef prepare some food and personally carried it upstairs to Zhaozhao's room. Seeing the girl nestled under the blanket, her whole head covered, he put down the plate and sat next to her, making a sound. "Zhaozhao, get up and have something to eat." Zhaozhao, hiding in bed, was full of grievances, but he dared not show his temper. But she still didn't even want her head to peek out of bed, and she replied in a hoarse voice, "Uncle Lu, I don't have an appetite, I don't want to eat." Chu Yan raised his hand and lifted the blanket. Seeing the girl's eyes red and swollen, as if she had cried, he frowned and asked very incomprehensively. "What the hell are you causing trouble? Is there anything uncomfortable about it?" Zhaozhao shook his head. She dare not speak up. "I'm afraid he will say that she lacks self-awareness and doesn't know what to do. Fortunately, she is pregnant and can use the child in her belly as an excuse." "No, I just have pregnancy symptoms and can't eat." Chu Yan didn't have much patience and raised his hand to pull her. "If you can't eat it, you have to eat it. Are you going to die?" After pulling the person up and sitting up, he picked up the dishes and personally fed her. Zhaozhao dared not refuse, even though the food in his mouth was as bitter as Huanglian, he had to swallow it with difficulty. Once she follows her own temper, maybe the worst storm will greet her. After all, she has no ability to resist in front of this man. Chu Yan didn't scold her too much when he saw her eating. Thinking about the child, he asked again. "Did you really think about getting rid of the child?" Zhaozhao lowered his head and looked at his abdomen. "Thinking that the child is not in her uterus, but in her fallopian tubes. If it's not destroyed, she will die." She had no other choice but to nod and respond, Chu Yan felt inexplicably annoyed when he saw her affirmative answer. "Think carefully, once it's broken, I'll send you back to get engaged to Nanting. Or do you want to draw a clear line with me so that you can be with that kid from Nanting? Isn't it said that women are soft-hearted and as mothers, they love their children very much? This girl has no attachment to her child at all. Zhaozhao was still struggling to swallow the food in his mouth, and without lifting his head, he stubbornly said. Isn't it Uncle Lu who asked me not to be delusional? Why do I have to help you give birth like a fool when you don't know how to marry me? She took the bowl in his hand and wolfed it down. I just want to use chewing to conceal the expression on my face that cares about him. Chu Yan heard her words and felt inexplicably angry. You're not stupid, I see you're smart. Suddenly getting up, he felt uncomfortable and said. Then have the surgery tomorrow. I hope you don't regret your choice. After the words fell, he slammed the door and left. Upon hearing the heavy sound of slamming the door, Zhaozhao couldn't help but shed uncontrollable tears as they fell into the bowl. She breathed heavily, trying to calm her collapsed emotions, and continued to swallow the food into her stomach. She still didn't leave the room this evening. Continue lying in bed. However, Zhaozhao did not expect that Chu Yan would come to her room again in the middle of the night and climb onto her bed. Chapter 10. Chu Yan's Fury. You are listening at novel.Audio. Smelling the alcohol smell on the man's body, Zhaozhao wanted to avoid him. But he suddenly pulled it back. Chu Yan leaned against the girl in his arm, held her little hand and placed it on him. He lowered his head and rubbed it against her ear, hoarsely bewitching. Help me. Zhaozhao withdrew his hand and refused, I don't. She knows this man has a strong sexual desire. Perhaps due to frequent outings, every time she is by her side, she will double her demands without interruption for a week. If it had been before, she might have helped him. Now whenever she thinks of him kissing other women, she feels nauseous. Chu Yan was displeased and his anger rose to his eyebrows. I owe you something to clean up again, right? He disregarded her wishes and tore open her camisole nightgown, biting directly onto her round and bare shoulder. Ah! Zhaozhao shouted out in pain and raised his hand against him. Chu Yan, please don't do this. The reason I came with you to the island is to have an abortion surgery, not to satisfy you. She thinks it's better not to be too submissive. Why is he able to support each other while she doesn't even have the qualification to refuse? She won't help him tonight. Chu Yan's eyes were blazing with flames, and his face was as cold as ice. It should have been the words abortion surgery that stabbed him. He spat out a few words inwardly, you're looking for death. Perhaps it was due to alcohol, coupled with the resistance of the girls around him, that completely angered him and made him lose his sanity. He completely disregarded that she was still pregnant and rushed in directly. At that moment, Zhaozhao felt as if his body had been fiercely torn into two pieces, causing tears to flow in pain. She bit her lips tightly, enduring the humiliation in pain and agony. This man she loves brings her humiliation. She really hurts. Both the body and the heart ache. Opening his eyes, Zhaozhao looked at the man on his body and spoke with disdain. You really make me sick. A moment ago, Lin Shuang asked her to kiss him, but now she climbed onto her bed again. He said he wanted her to get engaged to Nanting, so what is his current behavior? Zhaozhao was completely hopeless towards him. She will no longer make any resistance and allow him to indulge. What are you saying? Chu Yan picked up her hair and his eyes were sharp. Zhaozhao was rushed by him and lost his strength to answer. She endured the humiliating loss of dignity with pain, being tossed and turned around by him, brutally and cruelly treated. In the end, the pain was so unbearable that he fainted hard. During her fainting period, Zhaozhao did not know what had happened. When she woke up again, it was already 3 days later. She lay in the medical room, holding a hanging bottle. The doctor who came to replace her hanging bottle saw that she was awake and reminded her. You have just escaped danger to your life and your body is still very weak. Don't move, take good care of yourself. Zhaozhao looked at the doctor weakly and asked. The child in my belly. Doctor, it's gone. Zhaozhao felt a pain in her heart and mouth, and had difficulty breathing. Lost it. Did it just flow away like this? I vaguely remember that before she fainted, it was Chu Yan who was bullying her. So was it his barbaric and rough behavior that caused it? She closed her eyes in despair, tears silently rolling down the corners of her eyes. Zhaozhao reminded herself in her heart. Silly girl, you love the wrong person. He is not worth it. Put it down. Kick him out of your heart. Never love him again in the future. You can't get such a man, and he doesn't know how to pity you. In the end, he made himself covered in bruises, why bother? Zhaozhao closed his moist eyes again and lay down disheartened. She lay aimlessly in a suspended bottle for 2 days. On the 3rd day, my body was so numb that I couldn't help but lift the blanket and get out of bed. Walking to the window, she realized that she was still on Chu Yan's private island. I don't know how many days I stayed on the island, but when the doctor brought food over, Zhaozhao asked. What day is it today? As the doctor played with her nutritious meals, he said. On the 18th, you're recovering well, but still don't go out for a walk. If you really want to move around, just walk inside. Zhaozhao was leisurely eating. I didn't expect that she has been on the island for a week now. Take another 2 days off, she'll go back. In the future, never have any involvement with that man again. Having eaten lunch, Zhaozhao walked around freely in the entire villa. She only saw doctors, nannies, and chefs in the villa. I just didn't see Chu Yan himself. I'm too lazy to think of him. When she was tired from walking, she lay on the sofa in the living room on the 1st floor to sleep. This sleep lasts for 2 hours. When I woke up, it was already dark. Zhaozhao noticed that she had an extra blanket on her body, and beside her sat the man who made her feel cold. She quickly huddled her body in a corner of the sofa, afraid to approach him. Chu Yan glanced at the girl's movements and frowned slightly, expressing concern. Are you feeling better now? Zhaozhao thought that the consequence of confronting this man was to risk half of his life. She dared not have a rebellious heart anymore, and in order to live well, she could only follow him. Well, much better. My face is still very pale, I need to rest more. Chu Yan raised his hand and grabbed her small hand in the palm of his hand, rubbed it, and then asked. Have you had dinner yet? Zhaozhao wanted to withdraw his hand, but was afraid of angering him. She dared not move and whispered, I've eaten it. I haven't eaten yet, accompany me to have some. Knowing that she shouldn't move too much, he bent down and hugged her directly. Zhaozhao was somewhat surprised, as the moment he leaned against his chest, his heart was pounding with pain. She didn't understand exactly what this man meant. Previously, she was so fierce that she wished she could be killed. But now treat her so gently. Zhaozhao constantly reminds himself not to fantasize that he will have half the affection for himself. After all, he is an actor. What can't be performed? Perhaps it was also because of her miscarriage that he couldn't bear the deep condemnation in his heart, that he treated her like this. That must be it. Chu Yan placed the girl on a chair, sat next to her, and picked some vegetables for her to put on a plate. Since you have eaten it, you can eat whatever you want. Zhaozhao let out a and picked up his chopsticks to eat with his head down. Chu Yan looked at her. In just a few days, this girl has lost a lot of weight. Seeing her struggling to swallow food, he no longer forced her. If you can't eat it, then don't eat it. Zhaozhao put down his chopsticks and asked him, can I go back to my room now? Chu Yan looked at her as if she didn't want to be with him, feeling a bit uncomfortable. When I finish eating, I'll hold you up. Zhaozhao remained silent and sat quietly waiting. She reminded herself to learn well. Since he doesn't take her seriously in his heart, he always does some superficial work, slapping and giving a sweet date. Then she should also learn from him and be a person who doesn't match his appearance. Chu Yan casually ate a little, got up, and without hesitation, carried the girl upstairs. Putting her on the bed, he stared at her and asked. "Are you afraid of me?"